My wife secretly stole $250, $0 from our joint account, lied about it for months. Then I found out she's been planning to divorce me and claim everything, including my family home worth $600, $0, while I was away for a business trip. I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. It all started with a gut feeling that something wasn't right, but I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went until I stumbled on the truth. The craziest part, the moment I found out, everything changed in an instant like a switch had been flipped. And honestly, I still can't wrap my head around how my wife, Emily, could be so manipulative, so utterly selfish. We'd been married for about 8 years. I thought we had a good life, 2 kids, a nice house in a quiet suburb, decent jobs. Nothing fancy, but enough to get by comfortably. Emily was always a bit bitchy, always quick to dismiss my ideas, but I thought that was just her personality. She was beautiful, charismatic, and always had a way of making everyone think she was the perfect wife. But behind closed doors, I started noticing little signs that something was off. She started acting more distant, secretive with her phone, deleting messages when she thought I wasn't looking. I'd catch her lying about little things, where she was, who she was talking to. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed, or maybe I was overthinking it. But then I noticed she was spending more time on her laptop late at night, and her phone never left her side. Small things, but enough to make me suspicious. One day, I decided to check our joint bank account. It was a stupid move, I know, but I was desperate for answers. When I logged in, my jaw nearly hit the floor. There in the transaction history was a withdrawal of $250, $0. I stared at it, thinking it had to be a mistake. But no, it was real. Someone had taken that money and it was gone. I called the bank, but they told me the account had been drained over the past few months. I had no idea where the money had gone, but I knew it wasn't good. That night, I confronted Emily about the money. She looked surprised, then annoyed. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "It's just some investment thing I was handling. You don't need to worry about it." But I wasn't buying it. The way she defended herself, the way she avoided eye contact, it all felt wrong. I pressed her for answers, but she just shrugged and said I was paranoid. That's when I realized that she'd been lying about a lot, and I was starting to see the pattern. Over the next few weeks, more pieces fell into place. She was acting even more secretive, lying about her whereabouts, making excuses not to be home. I caught her in small lies about where she was, who she was with. Then I found out she'd been seeing a guy named Mark, a coworker she'd been texting nonstop. She told me she was just friends, but I could see the way she looked at him, the way she'd sneak around behind my back. It was obvious she was having an affair. The worst part, she had the nerve to deny everything when I confronted her. She said Mark was just a friend, that she was only talking to him about work, about stress, and that I was just paranoid, but I knew better. I had proof, screenshots of their messages, her late-night calls. She tried to spin it, say I was overreacting, that I was insecure. But I was. I knew she was cheating, and I knew she'd been planning her escape. That's when the anger started to boil inside me. I felt betrayed, not just by her infidelity, but by her lies and manipulation. I had trusted her with my life, my money, my future, and she'd been secretly screwing around, stealing from us, planning to leave me while I was away on that business trip. She'd even talked about divorcing me, claiming everything, our house, our savings, everything, while I was gone. I couldn't believe I had been so blind. I started digging deeper. I hired a private investigator, something I never thought I'd do, and what I found out was even worse. Emily had been planning her escape for months. She'd been funneling money into accounts I didn't know about, setting up a new life for herself. She was planning to take everything, including my family home, the one thing I thought was safe, the one place. I thought we'd raise our kids. I felt sick. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? It was like she was a completely different person. The night I discovered her affair and the money theft was the night everything changed. My world was crashing down, and I knew I had to do something. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she wanted, not without a fight. I had no idea what I was going to do next, but I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to confront her, find out how deep her deception went, and figure out how to protect what was mine. That's where I am now. Just trying to make sense of this mess, trying to hold myself together while the woman I loved and trusted turned out to be the biggest liar and thief I've ever known. If you've ever been through something like this, you know the feeling, the shock, the anger, the heartbreak. It's like my entire life has been turned upside down, and I don't even recognize my own wife anymore. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. I couldn't sleep after I uncovered everything, those messages, the bank statements, the fact that she'd been planning to leave me for months. I needed answers, and I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The next day, I came home early from work, my mind racing, trying to piece together what I was going to say. When I got inside, I found her in the kitchen, pretending to be normal, pouring herself a glass of wine. Her face lit up when she saw me, but I didn't buy the act. I laid everything out on the table: the bank account, the messages, the evidence of her affair, the fact that she'd stolen $250,000. Her eyes widened, then narrowed into a sneer. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You think I'd do all that? You're just paranoid like always." She tried to brush it off, saying I was overreacting, that I was accusing her without proof. But I had proof. Everything was there. I told her I knew about Mark, about the money, about her plans to leave me while I was away on business. Her reaction was instant. She rolled her eyes and scoffed. "You really think I'm stupid enough to get caught? You're just jealous because I was talking to someone who treats me better than you ever did." Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. I couldn't believe how cold she was, how easily she lied. I asked her why she'd done it, why she'd betray me like this. Her answer: "Because I'm tired of this life. You're never around, always working, always busy. Mark makes me feel alive, and I don't want to be stuck with a guy who's more interested in his job than his family." That was the moment I realized she had no remorse, no shame. She was justifying her actions, making herself the victim. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd only been using Mark as a distraction, but I didn't buy it. I told her she'd crossed a line, that I was done with her lies and I was going to take back what was mine: our house, our money, everything. I demanded she leave. She looked at me with contempt, then sneered, "You can't do anything. I've already got my lawyer working on the divorce papers. You're too late." That's when the shock really sank in. I'd always known she was selfish, but I never thought she'd go this far. She was planning to take everything I had, our family home, the savings, the future we'd built, and leave me with nothing. She was so brazen, so manipulative, that I wondered if I'd ever really know her. I was furious, but deep down I also felt annoying sadness. How did it come to this? How could someone I loved so much turn into someone so cold, so calculating? I didn't want to lose everything, not without a fight. I told her I'd get a lawyer myself, that I wasn't going to let her screw me over. She laughed at that, a cold, bitter laugh. "You think you can stop me? I've already planned everything. You're just too blind to see it." Her words echoed in my mind long after she left the house, slamming the door behind her like she couldn't wait to get away from me. The emotional fallout hit hard. I felt betrayed, humiliated, angry, all at once. There was a part of me that wanted to lash out, to scream, to make her pay for what she'd done. But I also felt lost, like I'd been punched in the stomach and left to pick myself up. I kept replaying everything in my head: her lies, her cheating, the stolen money, her plans to take the house, her coldness when I confronted her. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to her true nature. I spent that night lying awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. I felt a mixture of rage and despair. I wondered how I was supposed to move forward from this. I had always believed in the sanctity of marriage, in loyalty and trust. And now, all of that was gone. She had shattered everything with her lies, her betrayal, her greed. I was left with a broken heart and a mountain of questions. In that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her take everything without fighting for it. I knew I needed legal help, and I needed to protect what was mine: the house, the savings, my reputation. I also knew that I had to deal with the emotional fallout, the shame, the anger, the sadness. But I was determined not to be defeated. I had to stand up for myself, for my kids, for what little dignity I had left. That's when the real work began. I reached out to a lawyer, started gathering more evidence, and began planning my next move. I knew she was counting on me to crumble, to give up, but I refused. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything. Not without a fight. And honestly, I don't know how I'm going to come out of this, but I do know one thing: I'll never trust her again. Not the same way. Not ever. After I kicked her out and she left the house, I felt like I was in some kind of nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The house was eerily silent, and every corner seemed to echo with memories I couldn't bear to revisit. I spent the first few days in a fog, bouncing between anger and disbelief. How could she do this? How could she steal from us and then lie about it for so long? It was like I'd been living with a stranger all along. I started talking to a lawyer the very next day. I needed to know my rights, what I could do to stop her from taking everything. The lawyer was cold but professional. She told me that legally I had a good case, especially with the evidence I had gathered. The fact that Emily had been planning her escape, tying up assets, planning to divorce while I was away, gave me some leverage. But she also warned me that Emily had money and influence on her side, and that this wasn't going to be easy. Meanwhile, I kept digging. I hired a private investigator, just to confirm what I already suspected. Emily wasn't just planning to divorce me and walk away with the house. She'd been funneling money into accounts I didn't know about, probably to fund her new life. The PI found out she opened a new bank account in a different name and had been transferring chunks of money into it over the past few months. I felt sick reading that. She'd been planning her escape for a long time, and I'd been completely blind to it. That's when I started questioning everything. How many other lies had I missed? How much of what she'd told me was a lie? She'd always been bitchy and manipulative, but I never suspected she was capable of this level of deception. I felt betrayed not just by her infidelity, but by her entire personality. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. One thing that really crushed me was the way she lied about Mark. She kept insisting they were just friends, but I had proof of their affair. Texts, photos, even some of her calls with him at odd hours. She'd always denied it, calling me paranoid or insecure, but I knew better. I'd seen the way she looked at him, the way she'd secretly meet him outside work, the way she'd call him when she thought I wasn't paying attention. It was sickening. She'd been cheating on me and stealing from us at the same time. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt humiliated, angry, and deeply hurt. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, and now I felt like I'd been played for a fool. Every time I thought about her sneaking around, lying to my face, I wanted to scream. I had trusted her with everything: my heart, our family, future, our money, and she'd thrown it all away. I couldn't understand how she could be so selfish, so ruthless. I decided I needed to confront her again, face to face this time. I wanted to hear her explain herself, even if I already knew the answer. I set up a meeting with her lawyer to discuss the situation, and then I reached out to Emily directly. When she came to meet me, I was calm but firm. I told her I knew about her plans, about the money she'd stolen, about Mark, everything. I asked her why she did it. Her response was infuriating. She shrugged and said, "Because I was bored. You never paid attention to me. Mark makes me feel alive. You're always working, always tired. I needed someone who actually cared about me, who wanted to have sex and have fun." That's when I realized she'd been using me, just waiting for her chance to cut loose and run away with her new lover. She saw me as a trap, a bank account, a safety net she could finally ditch. She also tried to turn the tables, said I was controlling, that I never listened, that I was a terrible husband. She accused me of being distant, of neglecting her. But the truth was, I was working hard to provide for us. I never expected her to betray me like this, to steal from me, to lie so effortlessly. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of sadness. How did it come to this? How could she turn into someone so cold? In that meeting, I told her I was going to fight her for everything. That I wasn't going to let her take the house, our savings, or the kids without a fight. She scoffed and said she'd already spoken to her lawyer, that she'd be taking everything she could. That's when I realized this wasn't just about her leaving me, it was about her trying to destroy what we had built, to wipe me out completely. That night, I sat alone in the house, feeling emptier than I'd ever felt. The betrayal cut deep, and I knew I had a long road ahead. I was determined to fight for my rights, for the house, for my dignity. But I also knew I had to deal with the emotional fallout. Trust was shattered, and I wondered if I'd ever be able to love again or even trust anyone the same way. I started reaching out to friends and family, trying to keep myself grounded. Some told me I should just move on, that she was no good, while others urged me to fight for what's rightfully mine. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not without consequences. Not without making her pay for her lies and her greed. I was hurt, yes, but I was also angry, and that anger was becoming my fuel to keep going. The legal battle started to take shape quickly once I handed over all the evidence I had collected. I wasn't going to let her walk away with the house or the money she stole without a fight. My lawyer told me that since she'd been planning her escape for months, funneling money into secret accounts, and had clear intentions to divorce while I was away, I had a solid case to contest her claims and protect my assets. Still, I knew this wasn't going to be a quick or easy process. In the meantime, Emily was relentless. She kept calling, texting, trying to manipulate me into dropping the case. She'd throw out insults, accuse me of being controlling, and even try to guilt-trip me by saying I was ruining her life. She called me paranoid, jealous, and insecure, but I knew better. I saw through her lies now. I knew her game. She was trying to make me doubt myself, to make me look like the bad guy so she could spin her story to the courts. One day she showed up at my office unannounced, which I thought was a bad idea but also a clear sign she was desperate. She had that bitchy smirk on her face like she was trying to intimidate me. "You think you're going to win this?" she spat. "You're just a controlling, insecure loser. I'll take everything and you'll be lucky if you get to see the kids." Her words hit me hard, but I kept my composure. I told her to leave, that I wasn't going to be bullied, and that I'd see her in court. That's when I decided I needed to be more strategic. I hired a private investigator to follow her around, just to see if she was doing anything else shady. Turns out she was still meeting Mark, even with all the legal stuff going on. They'd been secretly seeing each other, planning their future, while I was trying to save what was left of ours. I found out she'd even been talking about moving out of state once she got her hands on the house, leaving everything behind, including the kids. That hurt more than I can say. Meanwhile, the financial mess was getting worse. I discovered that she'd been draining more than just the $250, $0 from our joint account. She transferred money to her secret accounts, bought expensive jewelry, and even paid for her new apartment. I felt like I was losing control of everything I'd worked so hard for. The house, the savings, the stability, all slipping away while she plotted her new life. I started to question if I'd ever really known her. Was she like this all along? Or did she change once she saw the opportunity to run? The woman I married, the one I thought loved me, was now just a stranger who lied, cheated, and stole. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't sleep some nights. I'd lie awake, replaying every moment, wondering how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. The emotional toll was enormous. I felt angry, bitter, and hopeless at times, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I had to fight for myself and my kids. I couldn't let her take everything without a fight. I started documenting everything: her lies, her meetings with Mark, her financial transactions. I wanted to have every piece of evidence I could use in court. One thing I kept thinking about was how she'd been so bitchy and dismissive, especially when I tried to talk to her about our marriage. She'd roll her eyes, dismiss my concerns, accuse me of being overbearing, controlling, or jealous. But now I saw her for what she really was: a manipulative, greedy woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted. It made me sick to my stomach to realize I'd been married to someone so ruthless. The day I finally filed for divorce, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief, because I was finally taking a stand, and dread because I knew this was just the beginning of a long, brutal fight. She responded with her usual venom, trying to spin her narrative to friends and family, claiming I was an abusive, jealous husband who was trying to ruin her life. I knew better. I had the proof of her cheating, her theft, and her plans to leave me with nothing. I also started to think about what I'd do if I lost everything, if she managed to take the house, the savings, and the kids. The thought terrified me, but I refused to give up. I was determined to fight tooth and nail to protect what was mine. I knew she'd try to manipulate the court, but I had enough evidence to show her true colors. In the midst of all this chaos, I realized I was stronger than I thought. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, but now I saw that sometimes you have to fight for those things, even if it means exposing the worst in someone you loved. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also awakens a resilience I didn't know I had. Whatever happens next, I'm not going down without a fight. I owe myself that much. The court hearings were a nightmare, but I knew I had to face them head on. Emily's lawyer tried every trick in the book, delaying tactics, false accusations, trying to paint her as the victim. She claimed I was controlling, that I was emotionally abusive, that I'd driven her to cheat and steal. But I had all the evidence to counter her lies. Texts, bank statements, witness statements from friends who saw her sneaking around with Mark. I was determined not to let her manipulate the system. One of the most intense moments was during the custody hearing. She showed up dressed to impress, all bitchy smiles and fake tears, trying to sway the judge. But I had the proof of her plans to leave the country with the kids, her secret accounts, and her affair. I argued that her actions demonstrated a lack of stability and that her priorities weren't in the best interest of the children. It was brutal, but I knew I had to fight for them. The judge didn't make a final decision right away, but I could see the wheels turning. I felt a mix of hope and dread. I knew Emily was trying to spin her narrative, but I also knew I had the truth on my side. I kept thinking about how she'd lied to me every step of the way, how she'd been planning this betrayal for months. It made me furious, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I was finally standing up for myself and my kids. Meanwhile, the financial battle was heating up. Emily's lawyer tried to claim that the house was joint property, that she was entitled to half of everything. But I had the evidence showing she'd been draining our accounts, funneling money into her own secret accounts, and planning her escape. I argued that she'd committed fraud and theft, and I demanded a court order to freeze her assets. I was prepared to go to war over this. The emotional toll was relentless. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, replaying everything in my head, her lies, her betrayal, her sneaking around. I felt betrayed not just as a husband, but as a man who'd trusted his wife with everything. I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. The pain of seeing her so cold and manipulative was hard to bear, but I knew I couldn't let her see me break. I had to be strong for my kids, for myself. On the days leading up to the final court ruling, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. I'd spent so much time fighting her, gathering evidence and trying to hold everything together. I'd lost sleep, lost my peace of mind, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. I kept reminding myself why I was doing this, to protect what was mine, to stop her from taking everything I had worked for, and to make her face the consequences of her actions. When the judge finally announced her decision, I felt a wave of relief. The court awarded me full custody of the kids, recognizing that Emily's plans to leave and her affair showed she was unfit to care for them. The house was awarded to me, and she was ordered to pay back the stolen money plus damages. It wasn't a perfect victory, but it was enough to start rebuilding my life. I felt a strange sense of closure, knowing I'd fought for everything I deserved. But the aftermath was still tough. Emily was furious, and she refused to accept the court's ruling. She tried to appeal, to manipulate the system further, but I was prepared. I had the evidence, the legal backing, and the support of my friends and family. I knew she wouldn't go down easily, but I also knew I had done everything I could. Now I'm in a different place. The house is mine again, and I'm slowly trying to rebuild what's left of my life. The scars of betrayal are still there, but I'm learning to live with them. I realize that trust is fragile, and that sometimes people you love can change into someone unrecognizable. But I also learned that standing up for yourself, fighting for what's right, and not giving up are the most important things. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also know that I can't change the past. All I can do now is move forward, protect my kids, and make sure I never get blindsided like this again. If there's one thing I want to tell anyone reading Be vigilant, trust your instincts, and don't ignore the red flags, because when betrayal hits, it hits hard. And sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back with everything you've got. Now that everything is settled legally, though I know the scars will stay with me, I've had time to reflect on what this whole nightmare has taught me. Honestly, I never thought I'd be the guy to go through something so ugly, so raw. I thought I knew Emily, I thought I knew us. Turns out I was living in a fantasy, and the betrayal was far worse than I imagined. But amidst all the chaos, I've learned some hard truths about trust, resilience, and what it really means to fight for yourself. One thing I've realized is that money is more than just numbers. It's security, stability, and the foundation of your life. Seeing her steal that much, then lie and manipulate her way through everything, made me see how fragile that foundation can be. I was naive to think that love and loyalty could just be enough to hold everything together. Now I know that without honesty and integrity, everything crumbles, and sometimes you have to take back what's yours with force. The emotional aftermath has been brutal. There are days when I feel numb, days when I feel rage bubbling just beneath the surface. But I've also had moments of clarity, moments where I realize that I survived this, and I will continue to survive. My kids are the reason I keep going. They deserve stability, honesty, and a father who's not broken by betrayal. Seeing their little faces every day reminds me of what's truly important and why I need to stay strong. I've also learned that sometimes the people we trust the most can turn out to be the biggest liars. That realization stings, but it's also a wake-up call. I can't control her actions, but I can control how I respond. I've chosen to focus on rebuilding my life, piece by piece, and to be more cautious with who I trust going forward. Not everyone has your best interests at heart, and it's up to you to protect yourself. For anyone out there going through something similar, trust me, I get it. It hurts like hell. The betrayal, the lies, the feeling of being completely blindsided, it's devastating. But you have to remember that you're stronger than you think. You have to fight for what's yours, whether that's your money, your dignity, or your peace of mind. Don't let the betrayal define you. Use it as a catalyst to grow, to learn, and to become more resilient. Looking back, I see the pain as a necessary part of my journey. It's made me more cautious, more aware, and more determined to protect myself and my kids. I've come to accept that some things can't be undone, but that doesn't mean I have to let them ruin me. I'm choosing to move forward, to rebuild what I can, and to trust myself more than I ever did before. So if you're reading this and you're in the thick of it, hold on. Keep fighting. Don't let anyone steal your peace or your future. Take control of your life, gather your evidence, stand your ground, and never underestimate your strength. Because in the end, the only person who truly has your back is you. And sometimes, that's enough to get through even the darkest storms.